Okay, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today, my guest is an outstanding drummer from the Detroit area that started playing at the young age of 14. He most recently finished touring with Ted Nugent for his farewell tour. He's been with Ted for, I believe, 7 years. He had also played with several other bands, including Sponge from the Detroit area, I believe Warrior Soul for a stint, and several other artists. Of course, my guest today is Jason Hartless. How you doing, Jason?
Hey man, how's it going?
Good, good. Anyway, let's get started and give me a little background on yourself. Like I said in the intro, I know you started playing drums around 14. What area you come?
Well, I'm born and raised in Fraser, Michigan, and my career actually goes back a lot farther than 14.
Yeah, I kind of thought that might be the case.
I started playing around 6 months to a year old. My dad was a drummer locally in Detroit,
Right, yeah.
and he was in bands, Children of the Revolution in one way, and a bunch of other bands. So I was thrusted right into the epicenter of music. The second I was born. So by the time I was 6 months old, I'd be sitting on my dad's lap and banging around on the drums.
Wow.
And then by the time I could crawl and walk on the kit myself at around 2 years old, I'd be sitting down there playing. And then eventually around the time I was 4 or 5, started jamming with some of my dad's buddies. Started playing gigs around Detroit at the age of 5, and
Really?
it was just kind of a snowball effect from there.
Let me ask you this: at 4 or 5, how do you get in the club?
My parents were always there, and
I'm just kidding.
it was always great, and I was very fortunate to get a professional head start right off the get-go.
So obviously you took to the drums right away. Your dad played drums, like you said, in local act. And was that the only instrument you played? Was drums? Do you play any other instruments, guitar, or anything like that?
No, because I kind of learned from a young age that I'd rather just really focus on the instrument that I love. And,
Right.
I took piano when I was in high school and stuff, but I always wanted to just keep working on my craft on the
Sure.
drums, and making sure I can continue to evolve and be as best as I can be.
Sure. Believe me, you definitely have achieved that. And like I said, you're so young that the world is your oyster, man. I mean, my God, what you've done so far. And like I said, I've seen you played with Ted. I saw you at Pine Knob the last time he was here. And I've seen several videos. How did you get started as far as getting in with some of these higher profile groups like Sponge and I mentioned Warrior Soul? How did you get hooked up with those groups at such a young age?
Around the time I was 12, I started touring with the band Brian Schramm Band, and we toured all over the U.S. and I was with them for about five years or so. And when I was 14, we toured with Motley Crue for 3 months. That was kind of my first real big touring gig. But my whole life, since my dad was in the industry, I had all these connections that were my dad's. Growing up around the Ace Frehley guys, and Ace and my dad go back 35 plus years.
Wow.
Corky Lang from Mountain, when I was 7 to 9 years old, would come up to Detroit from Toronto, mentor me, and we recorded a record together. So I was very, very, very fortunate that I, had a lot of these opportunities, very young on. And, when I started touring, just more and more things started snowballing. It's in this industry, it's all about knowing the right people at the right time, of
Sure.
course. But,
Absolutely.
also it's being that guy that can always just jump in at a moment's notice. I've known
Right.
the Sponge guys, pretty much my whole life, because they were always around in Detroit, so, I get a call last minute to do gigs with Sponge, and I ended up touring with them for about a year when Nugent wasn't touring between
Right.
2020 and 2021. But, again, it's all a networking thing. It's all about are you available? Can you do it? Always being, on top of your game when you're there and being as professional as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
At that point, everything kind of turns into, hearsay. No matter what, every gig has a different challenge. Every gig comes with a different responsibility. So, being the hired gun musician, it's just always making sure that you show up, be as professional as possible, and execute the gig.
Is that what you pretty much figure you are as far as that? A hired gun?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's why I'm able to play with, an artist like Ted Nugent, then turn around, tour with Eric Martin from Mr. Big, and then
Right.
tour with this artist and this artist. I love being the hired gun because at the end of the day, it's more satisfying for me because I'm able to, work with all these different artists and all these different genres, and play on, I played on the last Insane Clown Posse record, so it's like, to me, fulfills my creativity is just always jumping around and having different opportunities, different things that certain gigs require.
Well, I guess the other thing, of course, because you started all this and are doing this at such a young age, you're playing with Nugent at 15.
No, I started playing with Ted when I was 21, and I've been with him almost 10 years now.
So in other words, when you were touring at a younger age with some of these other groups you had mentioned, how did you fit that around, being a minor and going to school in high school? Were you just touring in the summer?
Yeah, most of the time. But even when I was on the road during school time, I was lucky that Fraser Public Schools side of Detroit, it has a extremely heavy performing arts department. So, the district was always super behind me, and I was, a B student, so, as long as I kept up on my work, and they were very encouraging to making sure that I was, building my career.
Now that Ted's stopped touring and all that, and I know you recorded with Ted too, isn't that correct? A couple of his albums?
Yeah, I've recorded on the last two records. This Adios Mofo tour was the last long span tour, but Ted is not retiring. He's we're taking more of a one-off approach throughout the year. Because when you're out for 7, 8 weeks at a time, no matter what, and Ted's in impeccable shape. He's going to turn 75 here in December. He's in the shape of a 50-year-old, and he's just absolutely at the top of his game still. But no matter what it is, when you're traveling for 6, 7, 8 weeks at a time, it wears down. And that's why he's going to be moving more towards doing one-off shows and big festivals and things of that.
I couldn't see him giving up at least playing as far as recording. You can tell he's got that passion, and he's always had that passion. So I thought, all right, well, maybe like some of the other ones at his age, and I can understand that, he's got to lay back off the touring as much or touring at all. So that's good to know that, that he's still going to play and perform as far as that, because, he's a legend. How did it feel to play with Ted? In other words, to get an opportunity like that. I mean, he's the Motor City Madman. I mean, I was seeing Ted back before you were born. It had to be a great honor and a thrill to be able to play with an icon like that. How did you feel when you first started playing with Ted?
Well, even before I started playing with Ted, I kind of was in the fold of things. I was touring with the band Pistol Day Parade from 2012 to 2015, and the tour before I joined Nugent, Pistol Day Parade was opening for Ted for the whole summer. Kind of was around everybody. So when I got the gig, it was I knew everybody. It wasn't like I was coming in, kind of not knowing everybody.
Right.
So it was a very easy transition for Ted and Greg Smith, who was our bass player at the time, and some of the crew. It was an easy first show, and because Ted and I got along instantly. I love the man to death. Treated me like family and treated my family like family. I couldn't ask for someone better to play with.
Did you actually have to audition for him, or did you pretty much get the gig because you'd have been touring with and he saw how talented you were?
Well, he called me after I had gotten an email from Ted's manager asking if I was interested, and Ted called me, and I flew down to Texas, and me and Greg Smith and Ted just sat in a little sweaty rehearsal spot down there one day, and we sat down for about maybe 45 minutes, jammed through the songs, and Ted was like, "This is it."
And the videos I've seen of you playing and stuff where they highlight your playing, one of them especially that sticks out was when he's doing Great White Buffalo and you're adding your extra little fills, was like, wow, this is incredible. This is really great. And I can see how Ted would be excited to play with somebody like you. Not, he's played with a lot of guys, obviously, over his career. But I mean, somebody with as young as yourself, kind of energy you're going to bring to that music again. Had you been playing Ted songs all your life, more or less on the side? I mean, you were obviously familiar with his music?
Not too much, actually. When I got really familiar with Ted, I knew Stranglehold, Cat Scratch Fever, the classics, but not anything deep catalog. But, I studied with Tommy Clufetas, who drummed for Ted from like 2001 to 2003, who's from Rochester. He's now, plays for Ozzy and Black Sabbath and stuff. But, when I was about 7, I studied with Tommy for a while, and he was currently drumming for Ted. So that was kind of like my introduction into everything. But, the thing about playing with Ted is no matter what what you're doing, he has this certain expectation of matching all of the Detroit greats, from the 1960s. Mitch
Right.
Ryder is the gold standard, being that tight, that aggressive, that, musically adapt to that raw Detroit sound is always what he wants to achieve. He was around during that day, so he saw the MC5, he saw Mitch Ryder, he saw all these bands that, me growing up always loving that stuff and being around that, it was really something that he always tries to capture, and he's tried to capture through his 60-year career.
And he has.
Playing with Ted is one of the absolute highlights, if not the highlight of my career, because it's such a fun gig. I love playing with him because every tour we try to change it up a little bit in terms of how we're approaching the music. One tour we want that power trio, who very bombastic and lots of fills and stuff, and then the next year we wanted a little more laid back and sat back in the pocket, so it's he always wants a little bit change every year, which I love because it keeps everything fresh.
Oh yeah, that's got to make it exciting and fun. Like you said, it's not like a job. It's like you're going in. I mean, it is a job, but you're still going in there with energy and then almost like reinventing these songs with a new energy or a new style. The other thing I was going to ask you was that you had played with Warrior Soul, and I had at least for a short stint or a few gigs.
Yeah, so let me clarify that for you.
Sure.
So Corey Clark is a dear family friend of my me and my parents, and my dad was a big Warrior Soul fan back in the day. I have not actually played with Warrior Soul, but I've toured with Warrior Soul, and I have co-produced some tracks with Corey and worked in the studio with him, but I have not actually played with him. My father actually did a number of shows in the late 2010s.
Yeah, because I did an interview with Corey, and he had mentioned your name and how thought you were a fine drummer. So I kind of, I guess, thought maybe you guys had jammed or whatever. But that's cool.
Oh yeah. We've definitely. Corey was in Detroit because he lives in Greece now. He was in Detroit earlier this summer, and him and I were in the studio remixing a record. And
oh really?
He's produced some stuff that I've played on, and I've produced stuff that he's done. So we've been working together for many years, but I have not actually played for Warrior Soul.
Okay. Are you a fan of Warrior Soul? I mean, the older music?
Absolutely. I grew up, listening to stuff because Warrior Soul was one of my dad's favorites.
Yeah.
So since as long as I can remember, I've always been listening to Warrior Soul. So,
cool.
When we became connected with Corey and, he became family, it was a very cool thing.
Well, the reason I bring that up is, as you know, obviously, working with Ted, being politically minded as he is, very conservative minded, very right wing, and that's great because I agree with him on a lot of things. But Corey is totally opposite of that. Do these type of things in any way cause any conflict? In other words, between, as a professional, between you playing with Ted and being in correlation with, Corey at all? I mean, they're completely, lyrically, musically, completely different sides of the spectrum and politically different as far as that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because at the end of the day, it's the music industry. If you're great at what you do and you're, successful, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's all about the music, and, everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Sure, absolutely.
And, able to the freedom of speech. But, at the end of the day, you're a working professional and it shouldn't matter.
I just wondered if in any way that it ever got you caught in the middle of, you're close with Ted as far as your family, you're close with Corey, any of that kind of friction come up, like, well, Jason, what side do you stand on? That had been ever brought up, or if it was just like, nope, I'm just playing drums and I'm not getting in the middle of the politics. Hello?
Yep, I'm here.
So that never came into play at all, then, obviously.
Nope. Like I said, it's all about music, and at the end of the day, it's you got a job to do. So no matter what, it shouldn't affect anything.
Right. Well, enough on that then. That's kind of what I thought, but I was kind of asked by people that I know that fall on both sides of that, just to see what you'd say to that, or if you had an opinion on it at all. And there again, that's no big deal. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about was you also finished a stint, I believe last spring or whatever, with Halloween over in Europe. How did that come about?
Well, again, being kind of around the whole music scene my whole life, Detroit scene. The Halloween guys are, again, like family to my family. And they were doing a huge metal festival in Germany this past April. Their drummer couldn't get over there due to passport issues. So, they called me, and, I did it. And I'm actually doing it again in December. We're playing a big, giant metal festival in Mexico.
Oh, you're going to be doing that with them. That's right. I knew they were playing. I wasn't aware that you were playing that with them. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really great. Brian and George are very, very close with my family, and it's it's cool. a great great kind of full circle moment, because the first gig my dad ever played was opening for Halloween.
Oh, okay.
So
that's cool.
Kind of that full circle moment's great, and it's great to play with,
They're playing a show on the 21st at Harpo's, also as part of the WLZ 2023 Motor City Rock celebration. As far as that, and you having played with them, and they seem to get a bunch of drummers that come in, are you going to be playing with them at all at that show, or you have something else going on?
Unfortunately, they asked me to come up and play a few tunes, but unfortunately, I'm actually going to be in Louisville playing a gig with the actor Tommy Howell from the Outsiders and E.T. So I'll be missing that show, unfortunately.
Well, you're a young guy. You got a lot of stuff going on. Tell me, as far as other than the Halloween thing and coming up and that gig, plans do you have in the future? Do you have anything you can discuss as far as other acts you'll be playing with while you're kind of waiting to maybe do some shows with Ted again down the line? Is there anything else going on?
Well, I'm very, very fortunate that my phone rings pretty consistently with studio session and live gigs and things like that. I'm moving to Nashville this winter, so it's always different things in the work. Plus, I own Sound City Records, so that keeps me extremely busy when I'm not playing. And I bless my stars every single day that I get to work in this great industry that I grew up in, and I love so much. And working with such amazing people, it just continues to fuel my fire. Always look for different opportunities. What's the next best thing to do?
Right. As far as this record label thing you talking about, have you got some acts lined up that you're going to be recording and putting out from that?
I've been for the last probably 10 years now, working with different record labels. My record label, Sound City, has done the last two WLLZ records locally, and that's pretty much the only local things that we do, just because it's such an amazing heritage thing. But, I control all of Ted Nugent's back catalog for unreleased stuff.
Oh, really?
I've been archiving, hundreds and hundreds of tapes over the last year and a half. So Ted and I partnered on a lot of different cool things that are coming out. I've worked with the Suite for many years.
Been busy.
Yeah, it's and this Black Friday Record Store Day we had releases by The Knack and Missing Persons, Sparks, Suite.
Wow.
So it's always about, we mainly work on archiving and living on the legacy of so many amazing artists over many different genres and many different decades.
That's
doing it, and especially doing it on the vinyl medium.
I love vinyl. Are you into vinyl?
Oh yeah, big time. That's our core business model is working on manufacturing vinyl, and we've been a great partner with Third Man Pressing in downtown Detroit, so they manufacture all of our vinyl.
That's cool.
It's a really, really great thing that I get to do, and it's so fun to kind of be on the other side of the industry versus just playing. So it definitely keeps me busy when I'm not.
Yeah, you get to see all the aspects of it.
We reissued Spirit of the Wild on vinyl, because it had never been on vinyl. Nude Vault Volume 1, which was the first part of our archiving process, which is the Free For All album, completely rough mix.
That was
very,
awesome.
very different. And for April of 2024, I can't say what we're going to release, but it's going to be the creme de la creme of all Nugent releases.
Anyway, I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy. I just want to thank you so much for getting together and spending the time and talking with me today. And I know you're going to go on to great things, and Detroit is looking forward to seeing your next phase. Next phase of your career. Like I said, you're tremendous drummer and got your hands in all of it, and that's great. Kudos to you, and keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm very blessed to be from such an amazing city like Detroit with such a crazy rich music history. It's always my goal to continue pass the torch onto the next generation of great Detroit musicians, and hopefully we continue our 100-year legacy of amazing music.
Absolutely. Well, that was Jason Hartless, hired gun, drummer to the stars, and this is Jimmy Jive saying, keep rocking.